Standing in Dubai International Airport with no phone, no wallet, and no ticket home, I watched my wife of 7 years disappear into the business class lounge like I'd never existed. She'd just canceled my return flight during the worst fight of our marriage, leaving me stranded 7,000 miles from home with nothing but the clothes on my back. That's when a woman in a Chanel suit and diamond earrings the size of grapes walked up to me and whispered 6 words that would change everything. Pretend you're my husband right now. My name is Mason Hartford, and 48 hours ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was married to Rebecca Ashford, daughter of real estate mogul Charles Ashford, whose net worth made my software consulting income look like pocket change. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 5, and I'd spent most of that time trying to prove I wasn't just another guy who married into money. The trip to Dubai was supposed to be our anniversary celebration. Rebecca had planned everything: first-class tickets, the Burj Al Arab Hotel, private tours of the desert. She wanted to show me the world her money could buy, and like an idiot, I'd agreed, even though I knew it would make me feel smaller with every extravagant expense. The fight started on our last morning at breakfast. We were sitting in the hotel's underwater restaurant, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling aquarium walls, when Rebecca's phone buzzed for the 15th time in 10 minutes. "Can you put that away?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "We're supposed to be celebrating our anniversary." Rebecca glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's work, Mason. The Singapore deal is closing today." "It's always work," I said, and I could hear the edge creeping into my voice. "We're in one of the most incredible cities in the world, and you've spent the entire trip on conference calls." She looked up at me then, and I saw something flash in her eyes. Irritation, maybe, or disappointment. Some of us have responsibilities that don't stop just because we're on vacation. The implication hung there between us like a third person at the table. She had real responsibilities. I just had my little consulting business. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. Rebecca sighed and set down her phone. "It means that not everyone can afford to disconnect completely from reality, Mason. My family's company employs 3,000 people. Decisions I make affect real lives." "And what do I do? Play pretend with computers?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." The argument escalated from there, years of resentment bubbling up between bites of Eggs Benedict and fresh mango. She accused me of being insecure about her success. I accused her of treating our marriage like another business transaction. She said I was ungrateful for everything her family had done for us. I said I never asked her family for anything. By the time we got to the airport, we weren't speaking. Rebecca handled everything at check-in because my name wasn't on her family's corporate travel account. I stood there like luggage while she spoke rapid-fire Arabic to the airline representative, her perfectly manicured hands gesturing elegantly as she arranged our boarding passes. "Here," she said, shoving my boarding pass at me without making eye contact. "Gate B7. Flight leaves in 2 hours." I should have checked the pass, should have looked at the details, but I was too angry, too hurt, too focused on maintaining whatever dignity I had left. We went through security separately. Rebecca had some kind of premium pass that let her skip the line, while I stood in the regular queue with everyone else. By the time I made it through, she was already gone. I found a quiet corner near our gate and tried to calm down. This was fixable. Every marriage had rough patches. We'd get home, talk things through, maybe see a counselor. We'd work it out. That's when Rebecca appeared in front of me, her Louis Vuitton carry-on rolling smoothly behind her. "I can't do this anymore," she said, her voice cold and flat. "Rebecca, come on. We're both upset. Let's just get home and—" "No," she interrupted. "I'm done, Mason. Done pretending this marriage is something it's not. Done watching you sulk every time my family helps us. Done feeling guilty for being successful." "I never asked you to feel guilty," I said, standing up. "I just wanted to feel like an equal partner instead of some charity case you keep around." Rebecca laughed, and it was the cruelest sound I'd ever heard from her. "Equal partner? Mason, be honest with yourself. My family paid for the house we live in. My connections got you half your clients. Without me, you'd still be working out of that depressing studio apartment in Queens." Each word was a knife, precise and deliberate. "I'm going home," she continued. "Alone. I need space to think about what I really want." "Fine," I said, my pride overriding my common sense. "Have a nice flight." She turned and walked toward the business class lounge without looking back. I sat there for another 30 minutes, alternating between anger and regret. Maybe I should apologize. Maybe she should. Maybe we both should. When boarding was called, I grabbed my carry-on and joined the line. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass, frowned, then scanned it again. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her accent making her words sound more apologetic than they probably were. "This ticket has been canceled." "What? No, that's impossible. Check again." She typed something into her computer, her expression shifting from apologetic to uncomfortable. "The ticket was canceled 15 minutes ago by the account holder. You're not authorized to travel on this reservation." The words hit me like a physical blow. My wife. My wife canceled my ticket? "I can't discuss the specifics, sir, but you're not cleared to board this flight." "Then put me on another flight. I'll pay for it. Myself. I'm afraid all our flights to New York are fully booked for the next 3 days. And even if we had availability, a last-minute international ticket would be approximately $8,000. $8,000. I had maybe $300 in my checking account. My credit cards were maxed from trying to keep up with Rebecca's lifestyle. Everything else was in joint accounts that she controlled. "Sir, you'll need to step aside. You're holding up the line." I moved away from the gate in a daze. Around me, families were boarding, businessmen were checking their phones, couples were holding hands. Normal people living normal lives. I pulled out my phone to call Rebecca, to beg her to fix this, to do something. That's when I realized the phone wasn't connecting. No service. She'd canceled my international plan, too. I stood there in the middle of Dubai International Airport, watching my wife's flight to New York push back from the gate through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She was on that plane somewhere, probably in her first-class pod, ordering champagne, relieved to be rid of me. If you're finding this story compelling, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below about a time when you felt completely powerless. Your engagement helps us create more content like this, and I read every single comment. Also, smash that like button so more people can find these stories. Now back to what happened next. I needed to think. I found a quiet bench near the duty-free shops and tried to assess my situation. No working phone, no money beyond the $40 in cash in my wallet, no credit cards that weren't maxed out, no way to get home. I could call the embassy maybe, but what would they do? I wasn't in danger. I wasn't a victim of a crime. I was just a guy whose rich wife had abandoned him. They might help eventually, but eventually could mean days or weeks. I could call my brother Tyler. He'd wire me money if he had it, but Tyler was a high school teacher with 3 kids. He didn't have $8,000 lying around. My father had passed away 2 years ago. My mother lived on Social Security in a retirement community in Florida. Asking her for money would kill her with worry. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely alone and completely helpless. That's when I noticed the woman. She was standing about 20 feet away, pretending to look at her phone, but I could feel her watching me. Mid-40s, expensively dressed, with the kind of effortless elegance that comes from generational wealth. Her Hermes bag probably cost more than my car. She glanced up, caught me looking, and walked over with the confident stride of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. "You're American," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah," I replied, confused. "How did you—" "The shoes," she said, gesturing at my Nike sneakers. "And the way you're sitting. Europeans don't sprawl like that." "Okay." She sat down next to me without asking permission, setting her bag between us. "Let me guess. Wife trouble?" I laughed bitterly. "How'd you know?" "I've seen that look before. On my own face, actually, about 6 months ago." She extended her hand. "Victoria Brennan." "Mason Hartford," I said, shaking it. "So, Mason Hartford, are you stuck here, or just dramatically contemplating your life choices?" Something about her directness made me tell her everything. About Rebecca, about the canceled ticket, about being stranded with no phone and no money. Victoria listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm going to make you an offer, and I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" "I don't even know you." "Exactly, which means I have no reason to lie to you." She leaned closer. "In about 5 minutes, a man is going to walk through those doors. His name is Gregory Thornton, and he's my ex-husband. He's been stalking me for 6 months, ever since I filed for divorce. The restraining order doesn't apply internationally. I don't understand. He tracked me here, Victoria continued. He knows I'm alone. He thinks he can intimidate me into coming back to him. She looked directly at me. But if I'm not alone, if I'm with my new husband, he'll back off, at least for now. You want me to pretend to be your husband? I want you to stand next to me and look like you belong there when he shows up. That's all. In exchange, I'll get you home. First-class ticket, tonight's flight, plus $10,000 cash for your trouble. It sounded insane. It sounded like a scam. But I looked at Victoria Brennan and saw something I recognized. Desperation masked by expensive clothes and perfect makeup. Why would you trust a stranger? I asked. Because strangers can't betray you. They have no expectations, no history, no leverage. She smiled sadly. Unlike husbands. Before I could answer, she grabbed my hand. He's here. Just follow my lead. A man appeared at the entrance to our terminal. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. He scanned the crowd with the intensity of a predator looking for prey. Victoria stood up, pulling me with her. She wrapped her arm around my waist in a gesture that looked natural, practiced, intimate. "Darling," she said loudly enough for her voice to carry. "Should we get coffee before our flight?" I played along, wrapping my arm around her shoulders. "Sure, sweetheart." Gregory's eyes locked onto us. He started walking over, his expression shifting from determination to confusion to barely contained rage. "Victoria," he said when he reached us, ignoring me completely. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about, Gregory," Victoria replied, her voice pleasant but firm. "The lawyers are handling everything." "Who is this?" Gregory demanded, finally looking at me. "This is Mason," Victoria said. "My husband." Gregory's face went red. "Your husband? You're still married to me. Actually, the divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. You'd know that if you read the papers your lawyers sent." She squeezed my waist. "Mason and I got married in Monaco last weekend. Didn't we, darling?" "Sure did," I said, trying to sound natural. "Beautiful ceremony. Small, intimate, just how Victoria wanted it." Gregory stared at me like he was considering whether violence was worth the international incident it would cause. "You're lying," he said finally. "This is some kind of game." "Believe what you want," Victoria said with a shrug. "But my driver is waiting, and our flight board's in an hour. Come on, Mason." She started walking toward the exit, and I followed, half expecting Gregory to grab one of us. But he just stood there, watching us leave with an expression of pure fury. We didn't speak until we were outside, where a black Mercedes with diplomatic plates was waiting. A driver in a crisp suit opened the back door, and Victoria slid in gracefully. I hesitated for just a moment before following her. The car pulled away from the curb, and Victoria exhaled slowly, the tension draining from her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I know that was strange, but you have no idea how much you just helped me." "Is he really dangerous?" I asked. "Gregory doesn't like losing," Victoria replied, "and he especially doesn't like losing to someone he considers beneath him, which is everyone." She looked at me. "I meant what I said. I'll get you home tonight, first class plus the money. But I need one more favor." "What kind of favor?" "Stay with me until my flight leaves. Gregory won't try anything if he thinks I'm with someone, but if he sees me alone again..." She trailed off. "Okay," I heard myself saying. "I'll stay." Victoria smiled for the first time, and it transformed her face from elegant to genuine. "Your wife is an idiot, you know, abandoning you like that." She'd probably say she was setting herself free. "Same thing," Victoria said. "When you abandon someone you promise to love, you're telling them they were never worth keeping in the first place." We spent the next 3 hours in the Emirates Business Lounge, a space so luxurious it made Rebecca's definition of comfort look modest. Victoria bought me clothes from the duty-free shops, a new phone with an international plan already activated, and a meal that cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week. "Why are you doing all this?" I asked as we sat in private pods overlooking the tarmac. "Because I can," Victoria replied simply. "And because 6 months ago I was exactly where you are now, alone, powerless, dependent on someone who used that dependence to control me." She sipped her wine. "Gregory made me feel small for 15 years, convinced me I couldn't survive without him, that his money and his name were the only things that gave me value. What changed? I inherited my grandmother's estate, $40 million that Gregory had no claim to. Suddenly, I didn't need him anymore. She smiled. He still hasn't forgiven me for that. My new phone buzzed. Tyler, my brother, had been trying to reach me. I'd texted him earlier to let him know I was okay, but now he was calling. "Hey," I answered. "Mason? What the hell is going on? Rebecca called Mom crying, saying you abandoned her in Dubai." I felt rage boil up in my chest. I abandoned her? Tyler, she canceled my ticket and left me stranded at the airport with no phone and no money. Silence. Then, "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. I'm only getting home because a stranger took pity on me." "Jesus, Mason, I never liked Rebecca, but this is next-level cruel." "Yeah, well, apparently our marriage has been next-level fake for a while now." "You need anything? I can try to scrape together some money. I'm covered," I said, glancing at Victoria. "But thanks, Ty. I'll call you when I land." After I hung up, Victoria said, "She's already rewriting the narrative, making herself the victim." "How do you know?" "Because that's what people like Gregory and Rebecca do. They can't admit they're the villains in their own stories, so they twist reality until they're the ones who suffered." Victoria set down her glass. "Don't let her get away with it." "What am I supposed to do? She has all the money, all the power, all the lawyers." "You document everything," Victoria said. "Every text, every email, every witness to what she did today. You tell your side of the story before she can bury the truth under her family's influence." She pulled out her phone. "In fact, let me make a call. I know someone who specializes in high-asset divorces. He'll make sure you're protected." 2 hours later, I was sitting in first class on Emirates Flight 202 to New York, a glass of champagne in my hand, and $10,000 in cash, tucked safely in the new carry-on Victoria had bought me. She was 3 rows ahead, reading a book, giving me space but occasionally glancing back to make sure I was okay. The flight attendant came by with hot towels and menus that looked like leather-bound novels. I thought about Rebecca, probably landing in New York right now, probably already calling her father to spin some story about how I'd embarrassed her in Dubai. But then I thought about Victoria's words. "Don't let her get away with it." I pulled out my new phone and started typing. Every detail of what had happened, every cruel word Rebecca had said, every moment of abandonment. I wasn't going to let her rewrite history. Not this time. When we landed at JFK 12 hours later, Victoria and I went through customs together. Gregory had apparently given up his pursuit, or at least postponed it. As we collected our luggage, Victoria handed me a business card. "That's my lawyer," she said. "Tell him I sent you. He'll take your case pro bono as a favor to me." "Victoria, you've already done too much. I've done exactly enough," she interrupted. "And Mason, don't go back to that house. Stay with your brother, stay at a hotel, stay anywhere but with Rebecca. The moment you walk through that door, you've given her permission to treat you like this. She's still my wife." "For now," Victoria said, "but that can change. Trust me, it's the best decision you'll ever make." She hugged me then, quick and businesslike, and disappeared into the crowd with her luggage and her driver. I stood there in the arrivals hall, exhausted, angry, and strangely hopeful. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Where are you? We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Talk to my lawyer." Then I called Tyler and asked if I could crash on his couch for a while. He said yes immediately, no questions asked. The divorce took 8 months. Rebecca tried everything, claiming I'd abandoned her in Dubai, that I'd been having an affair, that I'd stolen from her family's company. But Victoria's lawyer was ruthless, and more importantly, he was prepared. We had documentation of everything: the canceled ticket, the phone records, the witness statements from the gate agent who'd seen Rebecca's name on the cancellation. The settlement wasn't huge, but it was fair. I got half the equity in the house, which I immediately sold. I got enough money to restart my consulting business without depending on Rebecca's family connections. Most importantly, I got my self-respect back. Rebecca, according to mutual friends, married a hedge fund manager 6 months after our divorce was finalized. Someone who moved in the same circles as her family, who understood that money was more important than love. I hope they're happy together. I mean that sincerely. As for me, I learned that sometimes the worst moments of your life are just preparation for something better. Sometimes being abandoned at an airport by someone who promised to love you forever is exactly what you need to remember who you were before you started shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. I rebuilt my consulting business from scratch, focusing on clients who valued expertise over connections. It's smaller than it was, but it's completely mine. No family money propping it up, no corporate accounts I didn't earn myself. And 6 months after my divorce was finalized, I got a text from an unknown number. Heard through the grapevine that you're officially free. Congratulations, Victoria. We met for coffee the following week. Not as saviors and victims, not as desperate strangers in an airport, but as two people who'd survived their own versions of hell and came out stronger. I'm not saying we fell in love. Life isn't a fairy tale. But we became friends, real friends. The kind who understand what it means to rebuild yourself from nothing. Victoria eventually told me that Gregory had given up his stalking after seeing her with me. Something about the humiliation of being replaced broke whatever obsession he'd been nursing. She got a restraining order that actually worked, sold her shares in his company, and moved to Boston to start fresh. Last I heard, she was dating a marine biologist who studied coral reefs and didn't own a single designer suit. As for Rebecca, I heard through Tyler that she'd seen me at a restaurant last month with Victoria. We were laughing about something stupid, sharing a bottle of wine, living our lives without the weight of expectations crushing us. Tyler said Rebecca looked angry, said she whispered something to her husband that made him reach for her hand reassuringly. I don't know what she said, don't particularly care, but I like to imagine it was something about how I'd changed, how I looked happier, how abandoning me had been a mistake, because it had been a mistake. Not for me, but for her. She'd thrown away someone who would have loved her through anything, who would have worked tirelessly to make the marriage work, who would have swallowed his pride and his hurt just to keep her happy. Instead, she got someone who matched her on paper, but would never know the real her beneath all that polish and pretense. And I got something better. I got myself back. Standing at that airport in Dubai, abandoned and alone, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything. I'd just lost the things that were holding me back from becoming who I was always meant to be. The day Rebecca canceled my ticket and left me stranded wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of one where I finally got to be the main character instead of a supporting player in someone else's narrative. And that stranger who pretended to be my wife for an afternoon? She taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned. Sometimes the kindness of people who owe you nothing means more than the cruelty of people who promised you everything. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or made to feel small by someone who was supposed to love you, know that there's life after that moment. Better life. Stronger life. Your worth isn't determined by who stays or who leaves. It's determined by how you rebuild yourself after everything falls apart. And sometimes, the best thing that can happen to you is being left behind at an airport with nothing but $40 and a stranger's kindness. Because that's when you learn what you're really made of.